Okay, so we are going to start talking about the classification of living things. You need to make sure you have your guided notes and that you fill them in as we go along. So let's get started. All right, so just some definitions. Let's talk about what classify means. It is to group things according to similar or different features, their structures that they share. So imagine a grocery store. How would it be organized? You think about it, you know exactly where to find cereal. You go to the aisle where there's cereal and all the breakfast things. Could you imagine going to a grocery store if you did not know how it was organized, or if it wasn't organized at all? If you go to a news store, you have a hard time figuring out where things are located because everyone in different locations, they tend to stack things differently in their stores. So that's why it's just easy for people to go to the same store and know exactly where things are located. So why do science classify things? Well, they do it because there's over 8 million species on Earth, 8 million species. And that's a lot of things to keep in order. So we keep them organized to study the life of the Earth, of everything on Earth. Think about how the grocery store being organized, you can do your shopping. You know where everything is. So we want to just make everything easier. So the way we do that is we do that with the study of taxonomy, which is a scientific study of how living things are classified. Okay, so that's taxonomy. And that's useful because once it's classified, a scientist can learn a lot about that organism. So let's talk about what exactly is in the organism's name and how they do that. Scientists have a system for naming all the living things on Earth. And the system was created by a Swedish guy. He was named Carlos Linneaus. Okay, and this was developed over 200 years ago. As you can tell by the photo, it's pretty old. Linnaeus discovered binomial nomenclature. And bi means two and nomial means name. So two-name nomenclature. So you have generally a first name and a last name. You humans, people, we use binomial nomenclature as well. Okay, so let's talk about binomial nomenclature just a little bit. Each species of a living thing is a double name, like I said, and that is known as, we use their Latin name or their scientific name. Okay, so the first name is going to be our genus, and that tells which group of similar species the living thing belongs to. That's your genus. And then the second name is your species, and that tells the name of one particular species in that genus. Okay, so your genus is your first name, your second name is your species. All right, so let's look at what do we have here. Well, you can guess that they are all dogs. Okay, so in English, we call them a dog. In French, it's a chien. Hebrew is a kalev. Mandarin is gao. Japanese is inu. German is hund. And Hindi is kata. And if I said any of those wrong, I apologize if you know that I said them wrong. The scientific name for a dog is Canis familiaris, because we can name all of these this organism. All of these are the exact same organism. They're a dog. But I do not know that that was what a dog was in Mandarin, okay? I don't speak Mandarin, so I didn't know that. But everybody in the science community who speaks Mandarin and does not speak English will know that Canis familiaris is a dog. Okay, so this just reiterates why bother with a scientific name. They are universal among every country. Common names are going to be different among the regions. What is something we call soda in the South is pop in the North. And some people just say Coke. or Dr. Pepper or Sprite or whatever. So it's best to use a scientific name that is universal. And common names aren't specific, like soda and pop, lilies and lizards. You want to be as specific as possible, so you use a scientific name. So what about this? Well, what is that? Guess what? It depends on the part of the country you're from. It could be a mountain lion. It could be a cougar. It could be a puma, a panther, a catamount. But its scientific name is Puma concolor. So Linneaus' system of scientific names, we have some examples, and let's go through them to distinguish the difference. For a dog, it is Canis familiaris. Okay, for a timber wolf, it is Canis lupus. For a coyote, it is Canis latrans. Notice the word canis is used in all of these names. That is because it is the Latin word for dog. And it is used as the genus name because these animals are all dog-like animals. The second name is their species, and that tells you what kind of dog that it is. So these guys are all related. They're like cousins if we're looking at their family tree. Just like with everything else in this world, there are rules for binomial nomenclature. So there are rules for naming something. For starters, you have to have the first letter of the first word, your genus, always capitalized. The second word, the first letter, your species name, is never capitalized. And both words you put in either italics or you underline them. Okay, so let's look at this example. We have Canis familiaris, and that's it in italics, and you have Canis familiaris, and that's it underlined. Do not underline the space in between the genus and the species. Now, am I going to be that particular with it? No. But if you're told not to do it and you're taking a higher level class, then don't do it. Can we write in italics? The correct answer is no. So what we do is we write it regular and then we just underline it. All right, so let's look at the example of binomial nomenclature, and we are going to use a human as our example. So the common name obviously is human. The genus is Homo, and that is derived from the Latin word hominid, meaning man. The species is sapien. So the Latin word for wise, so wise man is what Homo sapien means. The scientific name for a human is Homo sapien, where you have the second letter, second word, lowercase, or you just underline both letters because obviously both words, because we cannot write in italics if we are writing it by hand. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about domains. A domain is the most general type of classification. You're primarily basing it on the cell type. The domains are currently the highest rank of classification. Scientists learn more about these organisms. Classification systems are going to change. Genetic sequencing has given researchers a whole new way to analyze the relationship between organisms. So we look at the DNA, we look at the cellular level, and determine which category we need to put these organisms in. So we have three categories. We have eukarya, and that means that they are eukaryotic cells, and that means they have a nucleus. We have bacteria, and that's our new bacteria. Okay, so like E. coli, C. diff, that kind of thing. Those are prokaryotic cells. And then we have our archaea bacteria, or archaea bacteria, however you want to say it, and that's our ancient bacteria. And those are the bacteria that we find in extreme conditions. We find them to be in salt. These are the bacteria that were here when the Earth was first created. So those are the three domains. Okay, so we have 6 kingdoms that they all fall underneath one of these 3 domains. So which kingdom do you think the plant, animal, and fungus kingdom belong to? Which domain do you think they fall under? Well, let's think about it. Do they have a nucleus? If they have a nucleus, then it cannot be archaebacteria or bacteria. So they would have to belong to kingdom Eukarya. As scientists have learned more about these organisms, the classification system has changed. Domain classification is based primarily on differences in the RNA. Okay, it's the RNA and the DNA. And these domains were not introduced until the 1990s. Okay, so we have the 3 domains here, and we're going to, I want you to fill in this chart on your notes with the 6 kingdoms, showing which domain they originate from. So Eukarya originates, we get the fungi. I don't know what my pencil is doing. Okay, we get the fungi, we get Plantae, which is the plants. We get Protista, which is the protists. We get Animalia, which is your animals. Okay, so you can put fungi, you would put fungus. For Plantae, you would put plants. That's if you don't want to write the Latin name. Now, on your test, you never know what they're going to provide you with. So if you want to put fungus, you can, but I think it would be very wise to know the other as well, to be able to recognize it. Okay, fungus, plant, protist, and animal. And then eubacteria and archaebacteria, that one is kind of a no-brainer. All right, what we're going to do now is talk about the different kingdoms. So find the first kingdom on your notes, and that's the bacteria kingdom Eubacteria, and that means true bacteria. Okay, and they have prokaryotic cells, so they do not have a nucleus. They are unicellular. They are autotrophs. Okay, that's a word that we have not talked about in a lot of detail yet. Autotrophs, so they make their own food. Who would make its own food? That would be like plants, or in this instance, these bacteria. Okay, so that means they have to have certain organelles that will allow them to make their own food, or heterotrophs, and they cannot make their own food. Then these guys have cell walls that have peptoglycan in it, and peptoglycan is what will make us sick. So we have streptococcus, which is strep. It's what you know it as, and Escherichia coli, you know it as E. coli. Now, food for thought. E. coli is actually in your stomach naturally. E. coli is found in your body, but E. coli that makes us sick is not the E. coli that's in our stomach. The E. coli that makes us sick is the E. coli that's usually found in like a cow's stomach, because our body is not used to that, and it makes us very, very sick. Okay, find on your paper the domain archae, and kingdom is going to be Archaebacteria, and that stands for ancient bacteria. Again, they are prokaryotic cells, so they have no nucleus. Okay, they are unicellular, so you get one. They could be either autotroph or heterotroph. Again, auto is self, hetero tells you that you have to get your food elsewhere. They do not contain peptoglycan. Okay. Some examples of this would be our extremophiles. So they love extreme environments with really hot places. We have halophiles. These guys love salt. And methanogens. And can you guess what they love? If you said methane, you are correct. So it's all about the environment. Okay, so kingdom Eukarya, we have our Protista, and I said kingdom Eukarya, I'm sorry, domain Eukarya. We have our kingdom Protista, and that's our Protist. Eukaryotic cells, so that means they have what? They have a nucleus, and they're also going to have organelles. Most protists are unicellular. Some can be multicellular. They can be autotrophs or heterotrophs. Now you notice right here, these guys have some little green things in them. Do you remember what you learned that was green? And it would be able to help the cell. If you said chloroplast, then you are correct, because a chloroplast is what the cell uses to make food from some. So the cell walls are going to contain cellulose, and some of them, like we just said, are going to have chloroplast in them. So that could be an amoeba, it could be a paramecium, slime molds, giant kelp. So those are some examples of some protists. Continuing our discussion on kingdom Protista, you should know that this is the most diverse kingdom out of all of them. They have recently been organized into subgroups to help narrow them down even further. So if you do any research in the future and you're told to look up a Protista or Protist, you'll find supergroups to help you figure out just exactly how can we put these guys together and classify them so that they make sense. Because as you can see, these all look very different. Okay, so find on your notes paper the domain Eukarya, kingdom fungi, and you know that is your fungus. Okay, these are eukaryotic cells, and most of these are unicellular. Some of them could be most of these are multicellular. Some can be unicellular. All of them are heterotrophs. They must get their food elsewhere. Okay, fungi are actually very lazy. These guys do not create their own food. They just, wherever they grow where they can eat it. And their cell walls contain chitin. So you've got mushrooms, yeast, and mold. Those are examples of a fungus. And if you have ever left anything in your refrigerator and you have forgotten to throw it away, or you put something under your bed, or left a drink on your nightstand for a while, then you know all about mold, unfortunately. Okay, now let's discuss kingdom Plantae, which is our plant kingdom. Okay, and again, we're dealing with eukaryotic cells. They are multicellular. Now these guys are autotrophs, so that means they're going to have chloroplast in them because they have to make their own food using the sun. Their cell walls, unlike the other organisms, their cell walls contain cellulose, and you've got a huge variety to choose from. Mosses and ferns or flowering plants are all examples of plants in the plant kingdom. And last but not least on our little journey throughout the kingdoms is the animal kingdom. And the animal kingdom, these are made up of eukaryotic cells. They're multicellular, they are heterotrophs, so these are all the same as the plants. There is absolutely no cell wall and there's no chloroplast. We know that those are the two things that keep us from two major differences in a plant versus an animal. But if we look at this, we got sponges, worms, insects, fishes, mammals. The variety is very big very vast among the animal kingdom. Okay, so how are things classified? There are 7 levels, not including the top one, which is domain. Okay, there are 7 different ways that you can organize the system. As you go down from kingdom to species, there are fewer numbers, and the increase in similarity there's an increase in the similarity of your species and of your organisms. So coming up here at kingdom, all right, there's tons and tons of species of different organisms in there, and then the numbers dwindle, and then you stop with 1. Okay, so here's an example. In Kingdom Animalia, look at all of these animals together. Got a worm, a dragonfly, we have a jellyfish, we got a fish, a lion, an owl, look like some other owls, and then we get a little bit less because we lose some of these organisms that do not have backbones, because this is the phylum Chordata, and Chordata is a chordate, which means you have a spinal cord. Class Aves, we get even, we can narrow it down even more. Class Aves are the birds, and then order Strigiforms. Okay, so it looks like we've now gone somewhere into like the owl territory. Strigidae is our family, and then genus is Bubbo, and then species here is Bubbo virginius. So I would probably guess that this bird is located in Virginia. All right, so moving on, let's discuss how we classify these organisms, with domain being the highest level of classification based on cell type. Then we have kingdom, the general level. Phylum is a subdivision of kingdom. Class, each phylum is divided into a class. Each class is divided into orders. Each family, we have orders that are divided into families, and families divided into genres or the genus, and then the species is our very lowest level, and it represents 1 single organism. So if you have a room full of 1,000 people and you have to come up with a way to figure out how to get down to 1 person within the way you say, okay, everybody who is a female, come forward. Everybody who is wearing red, come forward. Everybody who is left-handed, come forward. And as you go through this, more and more and more people aren't able to move forward until you get to 1 single person. All right, so I'm going to give you an example of how I remember the classification order. I want you to come up with your original catchphrase that might be better than mine. It won't be hard to be better than mine. You just take the first letter of each category, and then you try to come up with a way to remember it. So for me, I remember deal, Krabby Patty combo, onion fries, grape soda, because I'm ordering a Krabby Patty combo, but I want onion fries and I want a grape soda, and that is a deal. So deal is domain, kingdom is Krabby, phylum Patty, class combo, order onion, family fries, genus grape, and species soda. Now there are many, many, many more out there. You could probably Google it and come out with some, but I think if you take the time to come up with one on your own, you won't forget it. So some old ideas for this are Dear King Philip came over for good spaghetti, and do keep piling chocolate on Fred's gooey sundae. All right, so try to beat that. It shouldn't be hard. Okay, so now we're going to spend a couple of minutes trying to identify the the classification for a ring-tailed lemur. And as we move along this way, I want you to write down the actual name that fits on your paper. So the first thing we have to do is start with the domain. Which of these three domains does a ring-tailed lemur belong to? So you have to ask your question, is this a single-celled or multicellular organism? And you can say, yeah, that's multicellular. So obviously the archaebacteria and eubacteria are not going to be a part of it. It is eubacteria, so you need to write eukarya, so you need to write that down. Okay, so now that we've figured out that it's a eukarya, we need to determine which of the 6 kingdoms it's going to belong to. Is it the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungus kingdom? Is it an ancient bacteria? Is it an advanced bacteria, the new bacteria? Is it a protist? We've got 2 million species within all the kingdoms, and we got to narrow it down to just one. So which kingdom do we think the red ring-tailed lemur belongs to? If you said animal kingdom, you are correct. All right, there are approximately 40 phyla in the animal kingdom, and no, I'm not going to expect you to remember them. 800,000 species. Okay, that's better than 2 million, sure, but that's still ridiculous. So some examples of some common animal phyla that we might go into later based on time are as follows. The porifera. The porifera. It's animals that have a porous body. Cnidaria. Those are stemmed from the Greek word nido, those animals that sting. Can you think of an animal that might sting? You said jellyfish. Yeah, good times. Chordata, animals that have spinal cords. Annelida, the body of the animal is segmented and it has no joined limbs. And echinodermata, these are marine animals and they have a spiny skin. Those are just some of the approximately 40 phyla out there. Okay, and our lemur belongs to phylum Chordata. Out of those phyla chosen or presented, that's the best fit. All right, now that we know that, let's go ahead and make sure we write this down. What is the next level we need to determine? Class. All right, so there are 6 classes within phylum Chordata. It can be class Reptilia. All right, the Latin word reptili, which means creepy or animals that crawl. It can be amphibia. Amphi means double. Bia means life. These are animals that have life cycles in water and on land. Could be class Mammalia. That is the Latin word mammali, means breast. So these animals have mammary glands and they produce milk. Okay, and class Aves. Ave means to fly. These are our flying animals. There are also 2 remaining that are for fish. And it is class Mammalia that the lemur belongs to. Okay, so that's what you have so far. Up next, we have the order. In class Mammalia, there are 13 total orders that make up 5,000-ish species. So we're starting to really narrow it down, which is good. All right, so we've got order Metataria. These are the marsupials. They have a developed pouch. We have order Carnivora. This is a carnivorous animal, such as a raccoon. Order Chiroptera. Chiro means hand. Ptera means wing. Mammals that use their hands to fly. We have order Rodentia, and those are animals with teeth that are designed for gnawing. You can imagine that's your rodents. And then we have order Primate, which is opposable thumbs and forward-facing eyes. Can you guess which one it belongs to? All right, order Primate. Okay, so the families that are within the primate order, there are actually 10 families, and we are now down to 350 species. So we have really narrowed it down, but we're still not at our 1. Okay, so we've got family Omnidae, that's 5 species, the Latin word meaning family of men. We've got family Pungidae, and that's our apes. Cebidae is the New World monkeys, and Cercopthidae is the Old World monkeys. And look at how many species fit within each of those. It's crazy. And then Lemuridae, which is the large lemurs. The Latin word for lemur means spirit. They are chosen for their ghostly faces and for some of their nocturnal habits. And this one is definitely a lemur. So what else is left to find out to complete our classification chart? Now we need to do the genus and the species. Okay, so we're looking at kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Mammalia, order Primate, family Lemuridae, genus Lemur, species Cata. Scientific name is Lemur cata. From this classification, we know what from the organism? It's an animal. It has a backbone. It has mammary glands. It has opposable thumbs and forward-facing eyes. Had we not been given information about this, we still could have gained the clues as to what it was based on how it's classified. So the last thing we're going to discuss is a dichotomous key. All right, a dichotomous key is a reference tool that's used to determine the species of an unknown organism. The key has a series of choices that leads to the identification of the species. So here's an example. You have a bunch of leaves here and you need to classify them. Okay, so our example shows us 9 unknown species of coral reef fish. And based on the information on the next slide, we are going to figure out how to name these fish. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to identify the fish here based on the dichotomous key. We're going to start with step 1 and we're going to work our way through until we figure out what this fish is right here. So that's fish 1, fish 2, fish 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so looking at fish 1. If the fish shape is long and skinny, go to step 2. Well, it's not long and skinny, so it says if not long and skinny, go to step 3. All right, let's come down to step 3. If fish has both eyes on top of its head, then go to step 4. If fish has one eye on each side of its head, then go to step 5. Okay, so there's the fish's head, eyes. So if fish has long whip-like tail, it is a spotted eagle ray. If fish has short, blunt tail, it is a peacock flounder. And it definitely has a short fish tail. So what you need to write in this box on your paper is you need to write peacock flounder. And you'll be able to write it a lot better than me. All right, so let's try to identify another one. Let's look at number 9. Okay, so if fish shape is long and skinny, then go to step 2. If fish has pointed fins, it is a trumpet fish. Does it have pointed fins? Yes. All right, so it is a trumpet fish. Okay, let's look at number 8. All right, if fish shape is long and skinny, go to step 2. If it's not long and skinny, go to step 3. All right, so step 3. If fish shape has both eyes, then go to step 4 on top of its head. If fish has one eye on each side, then go to step 5. Okay, we're at step 5 now. If fish has spots, go to step 6. If fish does not have spots, go to step 7. All right, we don't have spots, we have stripes. Step 7, if fish has stripes, then go to step 8. If it does not have stripes, is a glassy sweeper. So this has stripes. So step 8, if fish has a V-shaped tail, it is a squirrel fish. And if it has a blunt tail, it is a glass-eyed snapper. So this one is a glass-eyed snapper. All right. Let's see, so we can cross out this one, we can cross out that one. What else do we do? Cross out the trumpet fish. Okay, go ahead and hit pause, and I want you to try to identify the rest of the fish on this page. And then when you have an answer, go ahead and hit play again. Okay, so you should have identified all of the fish at this point, and we have, you should have gone through and just taken it one step at a time until you reach the correct answer, hopefully, and let's check them now. So the first fish was the peacock flounder. Number 2 is a spotted goatfish. Number 3 was a glassy sweeper. Number 4 was a squirrelfish. 5 was a spotted eagle ray. 6 was a bandtail puffer. 7 was a spotted moray eel. 8 was a glass-eyed snapper. And 9 was a trumpet fish. So how'd you do? I'm curious. I hope you did well on this. This is all you have for notes, and we'll talk about more dealing with classification next class.